Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Rockville and Gaithersburg election results. Maryland economy starts to recover. Now Democrats want Larry Hogan to start spending. And Larry Hogan wants an independent panel to fix gerrymandering problems in the state of Maryland. Maryland Senate and congressional races are our final topic, so stay tuned while our panel of insiders give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James. Democratic Party insider, Sam Statland. Former president of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, and political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Local and municipal elections are often overlooked by the chattering classes. You couldn't find barely a mention in the Washington Post, and local governance is a right that most Americans cherish. This past Tuesday, local elections were held most notably in Rockville and Gaithersburg. In Gaithersburg, incumbent Mayor Judd Ashman won re-election, as did City Councilman Ryan Siegel and Neil Harris. Newcomer Robert Wu was elected to fill the final position. In Rockville, the mayor and council were running for a 4-year term for the first time. In addition, the Rockville election appeared more contentious with the formation of a slate of candidates billed as Team Rockville, who were seeking to change the political climate of the city. Team Rockville was partially successful with 3 slate members, Virginia Olney, Julie Polkovich Carr, and Mark Prajira, being voted into office. However, controversial Rockville Mayor Bridget Donnell Newton and Councilwoman Burl Feinberg were able to hold on to their positions. Susan, how do you interpret the overall success of Team Rockville?
Well, Team Rockville ran with a challenger to the mayor, and the people of Rockville like Bridget Newton. She has been around for a very long time, active in the city. And even the person who wasn't on the council currently was a former councilman. So people just voted people they're comfortable with, maybe familiar names. Sima Ostaby has lived in the city for a long, long time, but she's been away. She travels a lot for her work. And I think it's one of those things, don't fix it if it ain't broke.
But there was a turnover, Susan. There was a new
one. Yes, but that person had been on the council prior.
But on a 5-person panel, there are 3 people that were elected from Team Rockville, and that upsets the dynamics going forward.
They may have been on a team, but they've worked together, for a couple of years now on the council, and I don't think it really means people like the incumbents. They like Mayor Newton. I couldn't find anyone who was really out there saying bad things about Bridget. So
the business community wasn't happy with her.
But here's the thing. So now the more progressive 3-2 vote is there in place. And I think going forward, the question's going to be is whether this council will listen to its staff and follow staff recommendations, whether it's a zoning question, like the issue to convert those public storage warehouses to mixed use, I think upset a lot of people. Maybe that's why these other 2 got elected. And I think that you'll have a more reasonable council that is looking to benefit everyone within the city. And to benefit, you have to increase your tax base. I think that's what this will do.
I think one of the issues that they have to deal with, and I don't think it'll be postponed much longer, is the Rockville Pike Plan. North of Rockville and south of Rockville are booming right now, and Rockville in the middle is hurting a bit.
It is.
So I think that if this election said anything, they will be coerced.
I want to wrap it up with Mark. Mark, what's your take on these 2 very different elections?
Well, one of the key points is how few people turned out in both elections. So the turnout was 11% in Gaithersburg and 16% in Rockville. So it was very much sort of a a small group of people, maybe the ones who were familiar with the people who've been before. There wasn't much turnover. There wasn't a great deal of change.
So does that suggest that maybe municipal elections have outlived their purpose, and perhaps it's time to do away with these separate cities?
No.
What it says is that we're probably making more of this than what it was. Yeah, there's turnover, and I agree with that. But by the 16% and 11% respectively in those areas, they were saying that they lacked some things, and only those that had a real strong vested interest really voted.
But isn't that the whole point? There's only a small minority of people that are making the decisions, and everybody else really doesn't care. They'd rather have the county do the work.
Well, if that were your opinion, then in some of those rural places in Pennsylvania and West Virginia,
we're talking
where
about
Republicans
Montgomery County.
take office,
All right, well,
okay, with
The
low
people-
turnover.
the people of
We'll be able to debate this at another time, Susan.
In 4 years.
In 4 years,
Gaithersburg.
exactly. So how big is the Maryland budget deficit? It's so big that Governor Hogan and Democratic Majority Leader Mike Miller and House Speaker Mike Bush argued about it after new economic projections are showing budget surpluses of $520 million for this year. Both Democratic lawmakers urged Governor Hogan release $68 million in funding for additional education needs. While Governor Hogan, whose goal is the restoration of the Maryland economy and resolving the systemic budget deficits, countered it's way too soon to declare a victory and that the long-term fiscal outlook is still pretty uncertain, particularly when it comes to funding the state's pension obligations, which may be as big as $1 billion. Elbridge, each side has a different priority, but is Governor Hogan balancing his budget by undercutting the educational needs of the
Yes.
Maryland children?
Yes. The problem we face is that under a previous administrative term, education had to go from 16 years old to 18 years old to stay in school. You have more kids that are going to stay in school. We need the resources, in fact, to back that up. We understand what the governor's plan is, but he has to adapt to the current needs of our citizens now. Don't educate these kids, then you're going to have more kids going to jail, and that's a higher cost.
But the question to me is,
but Elbridge, you have limitations on your budget. You just can't write a blank check.
We're not asking for a blank check.
We're not the
They're
federal
showing that the
government
resources
that
are
can
coming
print
up.
money.
but here in Montgomery County, my question is where is that money going to go? It's not going to go into the classroom to educate the kids. It's going to go into school construction. And my biggest problem with that is that the planning department of the Board of Education never plans properly. We wind up overfunding. We wind up wasting money that we don't have to.
Sam,
and the key to this,
But
These are different
issue.
budgets. These are different
these-
budgets
those
that
are
we're
different
talking
issues.
about.
Money
This is
we're
not the
talking
capital
about
budget.
right here is for the geographic cost of education
Correct.
index. That money is all scheduled to go to Prince George's, Montgomery County, and Baltimore City. And those places aren't exactly favored by the governor. So I think there is a little bit of him saying, you know what, you don't need it.
Susan, let's go back and look at the numbers. In the current budget year, the amount of money that came from the state to the local jurisdictions went up by over $100 million. We're already spending over $6 billion. The amount of money that can be spent, we're already several months into the school year in a budget that's heavily salary oriented. We should wait to the next budget year in order to take a look at what's available.
No, but there are positions that have been left open, positions that have been cut that could be
the
re-added.
adjustments have already been made for this particular
But not
year.
good adjustments.
Listen,
Susan, we're
overall-
talking about a very small amount of money when you calculate the size of the Montgomery County public school budget. It's over $2 billion.
You say
This is-
small, then why is the governor lamenting over such a small amount of money? The legislature put $50 million extra dollars back into the pension fund. The economy is up. I mean,
Because the pension deficit is over, it's not $1 billion, that's the annual contribution. It's over $20 billion.
$20 billion, yeah.
$20 billion. And that's a long-term problem that the
and
state
my
has to
biggest
address.
problem with that is that the people on that pension board had no oversight by the General Assembly. I don't know who served on committees to oversight, but during this past 5 or 6 year period, we've had fraud, we've had people making recommendations that weren't sound, and we're hurting our teachers, and we have a shortfall. And as far as the education money, we started with Thornton, an unfunded mandate. $1.5 billion. Now, we've worked that down to $1 billion. But the $1 billion is not chicken feed. And now we still have the other deficit. So I don't think that it's unwise to be conservative and see what happens. I'd like to know where that pension plan is at the end of this year because of the growth of the plan and the way benefits are calculated. That money should be there.
Now, pension plan versus education.
Correct.
And remember, we're not in the state of Montgomery County. So in fact, we have to look at what's happening in Baltimore City, and we understand this past summer, education or the lack of education and resources played a large part in the unrest that went there. You have to address those concerns if we are the state of Maryland. And so we're asking the governor, support your education in the state of Maryland. We understand Montgomery County has this issue. We understand the pension has this issue. But education in the state of Maryland needs those resources.
Well, you're going to have the last word, Elbridge. When we come back from this short break, why is the Supreme Court using a Maryland case to test the limits of political gerrymandering? And we're going to take a quick look at Maryland Congressional and Senate races. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The Supreme Court has never overturned a congressional map decided upon by a state, even ones that seem to outsiders as unfair and lopsided, leaving it to the state political process to sort out those type of things. However, this week the court heard arguments in a Maryland case that suggests that there could be a limit to partisan gerrymandering. At issue is the 2011 Maryland Congressional District map, which offers an extreme example of the lengths that a ruling party can take to draw electoral lines that favor their own candidates. Susan, Justice Kennedy in Veith versus Jubilar suggested that partisan gerrymandering could violate the free speech and association rights of certain groups of people. Now, is this an area that the Supreme Court should enter into, or should they leave well enough alone?
I think it should be a state issue. The Supreme Court should stay out. And I find it ironic that we're talking about Maryland. 8 of the 10 most egregious gerrymandering have been done by Republicans
Susan,
in other
the
states.
reason we're talking about it is because the Supreme Court just heard the case.
I think they're going to say it's none of our business, leave it to the states.
Mark, do you have the same opinion?
I think that there are limits to gerrymandering. Actually, the case that you referenced is instructive of it. A challenge was to the Pennsylvania lines that came up in 2002. The Republicans in Pennsylvania were way too aggressive, and came the 2006 election, 4 congressional seats changed hands, and it went up to 11 to 7. There's a limit to what you can do with gerrymandering, and actually Maryland is a great example of that. When you look at District 6, where the supposedly Democratic district was designed to be Democratic, John Delaney is the congressman there, but Delaney was reelected with less than 50% of the vote in the last election. It's a much more marginal district. There's only so much you can do, and it would be better if everybody kind of recognized those limits.
You know what, Mark? One of the issues of that, though, is Democrats are notorious for not voting in off-year elections. And I think you will see that number go up again this year in the presidential election, or next year, rather, because Democrats stayed away everywhere last year, and this next year they will be out. And that
you got a
presidential
presidential
race.
votage aside, the Maryland map has been highly criticized by many. And Sam, Governor Hogan has proposed turning the whole problem over to an independent commission to allow them to make the decision as to what's fair and not fair when drawing up congressional districts. Is that the right decision?
That committee, as a matter of fact, has reported. And what they did recommend was an independent commission to draw our districts. And I personally feel that that's a great idea. And I know congressional electeds that felt that the last map drawn by the governor, may I add, was absolutely egregious and that it was shameful. And I kind of agree with that too. I think I don't think our founding fathers, in setting up our current procedures and who gets elected and how long, A, thought that gerrymandering would be in existence, and I also don't think that they felt that those people elected to office would be as entrenched. Well, in effect, what we've done is we've created another field of employment.
But
you start at the
in
bottom,
fact,
you
say
work your way
our
up.
founding fathers, which meant for all the United States.
Right.
And right now we have a hodgepodge of setting up districts. Depends on which state you're in, you
Correct.
know, what happens. And we find there's an imbalance in a lot of states, so which Maryland is not the most egregious, but in fact now it's being cited.
Well,
I
does it depend on
participate-
what
it's
side-
what-
does it depend on what side of the fence you're on?
It goes
well,
back
I think
to-
Mark agrees with you, Elbridge.
I mean, there is a question. There is a
Look at
question.
Pennsylvania.
Republicans control more states in this country,
Right.
Right.
overwhelmingly, than Democrats.
And,
Because of
and
governorships.
Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, Texas.
But let's keep it local, Susan. I know you love to distract everybody and kill and kill time by bringing in other states. The fact is, the Maryland map is horrendous, and the question is it fair, and how to fix it?
It has to be fair universally. And I understand what you're trying to say, Maryland. I participated in those hearings, and the majority of, I went to two of them, and the majority of those that participated, that spoke up, had concerns with regard to if Maryland does this and no one else does this, where does that place Maryland in the
my
largest state?
point is there's a limit to how much you can do it. Pennsylvania is one of many examples where when a party tries to do too much with redistricting,
Thank you.
they'll end up backfiring it because elections have a way of swinging. So
And that may well have been exactly what's happened in Maryland. And we'll have to wait for the Supreme Court to see what they're going to say.
All right, Sam, you're going to have the last word because we're now going to talk about two very exciting races. In the race to succeed outgoing District 8 Congressman Chris Van Hollen, celebrity candidate Kathleen Matthews picked up a major endorsement when Emily's List endorsed her candidacy. And in the Senate race to replace Barbara Mikulski, Congresswoman Donna Edwards is showing surprising strength against Representative Chris Van Hollen. Elbridge, how do you explain the strength that Representative Edwards is showing in this race?
It's early, number one, but also number two, and you had to follow with me this. In Baltimore City, with the unrest and with the current situation of Black Lives Matter, you have more African Americans and more progressives that are clearly looking at, okay, we need someone that is on the surface moving in a direction we want to have moved. I'm a Van Hollen fan, to be very honest with you, but I understand some of the dynamics that are happening. Also, Mikulski, and they're thinking of we might want to have another woman follow in her footsteps because she was a strong and good leader.
So Susan, is this, wait a minute, I want to go to
agree with
Susan
you.
on that.
Absolutely
Susan, is this
agree.
a Baltimore versus Montgomery County race? I mean, or is this shaping up as something else?
Donna's in Prince
Or
George's, so
Baltimore County,
it's a Senate
Baltimore
race.
City, non-Baltimore.
no, I think that ultimately Chris is going to win. I think that when people look at the qualifications of both of them,
Yes.
they're going to see that Chris is far superior. And at the moment, I think Donna Edwards is viewed as, yes, she's a woman and she's African American, but I think as the campaign goes on, Chris is ultimately going to win. And Emily, back to Kathleen for a minute, yeah, she got Emily's List. But other people are getting endorsements right and left. And this week, Kumar Barve released a big list of Asian supporters
Right.
that he has. So it's going to be in the 8th race who gets out, knocks on the most doors, who goes to the most events, and gets out their vote. In the Senate race, what I'm waiting for in either race is a Republican to come out, and I haven't seen any
All
yet.
right, Mark,
Wait,
that's a
I want-
challenge
Well,
to you.
there-
What's the answer?
there are a number of Republicans in the race for the Senate. So there's a
Who? I've never heard
We'll go through. There's a whole bunch. We'll have.
You'll have a primary.
We'll
We won't have
we'll
time.
unquestionably have a primary. I was with one of them last night, Richard Douglas, and there's a delegate who's running, but there's a bunch. Let me come back to one of the fascinating questions about the Democratic primary is the prospects of Elijah Cummings. The polls suggest that were he to get into the race, that he would swamp the other
I
candidates.
think at this point, from what I'm hearing, he's not going to. It is November, and the primaries in April. There is a lot of stuff going on Capitol Hill. Elijah Cummings is in a very important committee, and I don't think he's going to do it. He likes, I'm told, where he is in Congress.
Joe Biden.
I've had personal interactions with all three. And if Elijah comes in this race, I'm going to really be in a rock and a hard place. Donna Edwards doesn't deserve to be dog catcher, in my opinion. And I think Elijah Cummings is truly a wonderful person, as is Chris Van Hollen. You know, I wish you could have one serve 3 years and the other serve for 3 years.
Donna
This
has,
is a
Donna
really
has her
tough
good
call.
points, and I think Donna would be a strong leader. I'm a Chris Van Hollen supporter because I believe in stronger leadership.
Well,
but hold on a second. But Elijah Cummings, I think Elijah Cummings has power and prestige and has the ability to do more.
How
In
old is
Congress.
Elijah?
64, 65.
Young guy.
Yeah, 65.
Yeah, he's going to stay in
I
Congress.
want to go to Sam on this. Sam, isn't the possibility in the 8th district race that you're going to have several well-known members of the House of Delegates? You've got Kumar Barve, you've got
Jamie
Raskin, you've got Anasol Gutierrez, and they may split up your activist vote, and Kathleen Matthews could squeak in.
In my opinion, if you're going to run for in a federal election on an off-local election year, you should resign your seat. I want to see how serious you are about running. And I think that would knock Kumar right out of the ballpark.
Well,
I
but
think it would,
that's
wait a
not-
second.
that's not the
case.
I
It's
think
not
it would
realistic.
knock Anna Saul out of the ballpark and leave you in a two-way race between Kathleen and.
Well,
However,
that's
I
what
must
if.
say, under this undercurrent that's there, don't underestimate the ability of Anasol Gutierrez to get votes.
Correct.
Really?
Because
Really.
that race goes through District 18. To win that race, you have to win District 18, and Anna represents 18.
Susan, you've got the last word. Stay tuned when we come back from this short break for parting shots.
That.
And welcome back now with parting shots. Sam Statland.
I don't have a parting shot, but I do want to tell everyone who's out there to please be aware that right now in Aspen Hill, one of the most underserved healthcare areas in Montgomery County, Mobile Medical Care has a van set up at St. Mary Magdalene Church. It's there 2 days a week. If you have no insurance, you can go there and get health care. And more importantly, or as importantly, if you're participating in Medicaid and you're looking for a provider, there is a great provider, and Mobile Medical Care will give you tremendous care. So anybody who knows people who want a provider, either uninsured or who have Medicaid, let them call Mobile Medical Care, Inc.
Thank you, Sam. Elbridge James, your parting shot.
Well, as a longtime resident of Montgomery County and concerned about where my tax dollars are going, I'm really mad at the Democratic Party for its continuing abuse of Baltimore City, which drains off Montgomery County money going to Baltimore City. We need effective leadership in Baltimore City to use the resources correctly to benefit all those citizens, because that has a rippling effect on what happens in Montgomery County, Howard County, and Prince George's County.
Thank you, Elbridge. Susan Heltemes, your parting shot.
Today I was fortunate enough to have lunch with former Secretary of Aging Jean Rosser, former Secretary of Aging Gloria Lala, and current Secretary of Aging Rona Kramer. We had a delightful luncheon, and even though Secretary Lala and Secretary Rosser are going through health challenges, their spirits were indomitable, and it was great to spend a day talking about the issues that face Maryland. And for those who might be concerned, these are the colors of my Minnesota University. It's not maroon and gold. It is the colors of the University of Minnesota, my proud alma mater.
Thank you, Susan, and it's burgundy and gold.
It's maroon and
Thank
gold
you.
for Minnesota.
So, Mark Uncapher, your parting
My shot. This week there was a bit of controversy back and forth with the council and the county executive over salaries The council pointed out that the head of OMB in the county and the head of Health and Human Services gets more than the secretaries of those at the federal level. But you can appreciate the county executive's frustration in having this pointed out to him, considering the fact that the county council has voted itself the highest salary, higher than any state legislature in the country by a considerable amount. So I guess both sides are kind of pointing the finger at each other, and everybody's getting too much.
Well, thank you, Mark. Now, this week, this show will air on Sunday. And on Sunday morning at 12 o'clock, you'll be getting ready, after you watch this show, for the Redskin game against the New England Patriots. I just want to say that the Redskins are going to win this week. They're going to pull up the upset of the year. Well, at least I'm hoping they pull up the upset of the year. So stay tuned. You'll see great football, I hope. And when the Redskins get on the winning train again, we'll have a big celebration. Panel, thank you for being here. Thank you, audience, for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show. And don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter, you can like us on Facebook, and most importantly, you can watch us on YouTube. For 21 This Week, I'm Casey Aiken.